everybody. It's exactly 10 a.m., so I'm going to call to order the Mayor's Advisory Committee on Trees today, August 9th. We have a couple of folks that have not yet arrived or are not coming. Bunky and Kitty Downs, I don't expect today. So we'll see if a couple more folks. Who's missing? Is this it? Okay, well, thanks to everybody. The entire committee, with those two exceptions, is here today. I'm going to go directly into the substance of our agenda today for a couple of reasons. I have to leave this meeting at 10:59 a.m. to be somewhere else at 11 o'clock.
I guess it must not be far away.
It's not far. It's very, very close. Yes. And I'm glad you asked that, Terry. If y'all are still in discussion on anything, just keep going. And if someone would be so kind to just adjourn the meeting when you're finished, and then I can double back with one of you after that time. Okay. So I want to make a couple of changes to our agenda, only meaning after the Arbor Day discussion, which I think Andrea's going to kind of chair that, and any other folks that would like to join in. Andrea or Sturgis or both, whatever you guys like. And then I would like to move quickly to new business. I wanted to share something with y'all and put something on the table, and then we'll go back to the regular agenda. So how about we start right in with Arbor Day, Andrea Sturgis.
Okay, well, I have a couple of things. I guess thinking about budgets, when are budget requests due? Because we're on the record, I hope, for 30 trees for next year. And I would like to know whether we need to budget for that, number one. And number two, do we know where they'll go? And maintenance. So I'd like to get that out right now, because.
So when you're saying next year, you're talking about like planting in spring?
Well, we're going to change the date of our Arbor Day. It's going to be in March, before school gets out. So before the spring break. I'm sorry,
Yeah, right.
When the school gets out for spring break.
Yeah,
So the date will be changed, and that's actually a good time to plant anyway. So I don't know, because we haven't planted that many trees before, what we need to ask for, and how we need to prep for it.
Yeah, let me just level set it, since I won't be on the commission at that time. March is the end of the previous budget. So our budgets become effective April 1 of each year.
Okay.
So you'll be looking at, through Liz's leadership, I'm going to guess, and I'll see if she's going to nod in the affirmative, of whether or not there is budget funding, which I would hope, out of the current funding to be able to support the 30 tree concept for March of 2020. So Liz, I'll throw that to you.
It depends on exactly how much you want to spend on the 30 trees. So I can tell you, if you want 32-inch trees, that was definitely not allocated for this year's budget, because we do that in the fall.
Because you're looking at them for how much per?
If you want like 2-inch trees, it'll be like $500 each.
$500 each.
So Liz and Tony,
$550.
what about the mitigation fund that we have sitting there that is dedicated toward trees?
So that's budgeted every year. The last 2 years it's been $7,000, which is part of my ongoing budget.
Okay, it stopped there. The way it's allocated is, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's about a 10% allocation of what's in the fund annually.
It serves like an endowed fund.
Yes.
Okay.
And
However, my personal opinion is that if we have a special request that is within a budget year where we didn't do what you're suggesting, Liz, which is come in with an additional request, I would certainly hope that as a committee, the concept of putting forward a request for additional funding let's say, funded out of the mitigation fund, would be something that could go to the commissioners. Or it could go to the city manager and the mayor for approval or disapproval.
I don't know. When I first started, I was told I could use the funds.
Yeah.
The budget had already been set when I started. And so I had things planned for the money. And then I was told, since it wasn't allocated, budgeted for that year, that I couldn't access any of it.
Well,
That
and
doesn't mean-
I think we would have to cross that bridge of funding with the appropriate folks, with the commissioners that are on or not on this committee, and go from there. Terry, then Andrea?
When would that have to occur? When would that request have to occur if she's targeting April?
Well, here's would be my answer, and Dick, I'll look to you, that if as a result of this discussion, we already know, and I'm not certain we have the answer to where they're gonna go yet, but if those things could be answered, where they're gonna go, and that the actual amount is 30,
I think we decided that.
then we'd have to surface that request in short order,
Okay.
I think.
Yeah, let's not sit on that request until
Right.
after the first of the year.
Just kind of my recollection of previous discussion between Andrea and I think Liz and I was that these would most likely be seedlings, and part of the reason being is that we were going to kind of have children planting them. I mean that sounds weird. I mean, you know, because children can't plant larger trees, and then the other question. I mean, I'd wanna defer or refer this to Liz in terms of places to plant. You know,
Absolutely.
what size is
Yes,
appropriate,
absolutely.
where and when.
Because all of these, just for, if anybody's streaming us, all of these are intended for public property.
Exactly.
Okay.
And so, and then the other question, and you kind of raised it, was maintenance. I mean, obviously, we would
Yes.
like a maximum number of whatever size of the 30 to survive, as long, and
So-
thrive.
So let me ask a question. Is the proposal for seedlings or not?
Well, I mean, I think Andrea is undecided about this. or
I
is this a question?
don't think the 30 of them should be for seedlings, particularly given that as far as the kids go and the planting goes, some of that is going to be taken care of. They're not planting, but we do have a thing going on with the dedication of the school where the kids are going to get trees and, be assigned to trees. So I don't, the idea of 30 seedlings, that's,
So this is something Andrea and I.
we haven't discussed.
This is
Yes.
new to
That's
me
kind of
too.
like-
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
kind of
Or,
like-
or with
heard
you.
that.
I mean, I'm just
Yeah.
getting it out there because I think that it needs to be out there as far as the budget goes, I guess.
I mean.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a huge difference. I mean, seedlings
Oh, yeah.
are $15.
Yeah.
So, we gotta.
And remind me, Andrea, the location for these trees is where?
So that would have to change because we were focusing on restoration sites,
Yeah.
seedlings, which that would be what is industry standard for ecological restoration and what would be appropriate.
It's
if
not
we're
the
talking,
school.
No,
Okay.
Yeah, if we're talking,
Just keep in mind, we are being listened to by folks who may be just coming in on this meeting. So we need to put in context that it's not for the school.
No, it's not. for the
Okay,
school.
Yeah,
it's
so-
for our public property.
if we're talking 32-inch trees, that would not be appropriate to put in the woods, for example. I mean, like it might be okay, say if we did Park Avenue and at the front we planted like one kind of feature 3-inch tree and then reforested with seedlings, but 32-inch caliper trees
Can
just
you do
wouldn't make
a
sense.
combination?
Terry,
I was just gonna say, I think all of these details have to be worked
Yeah,
out within your committee.
yeah.
So I think maybe it would be best if the two of you, with other input
Yeah.
possibly, come up with the proposal and also varieties
And
on the
Liz,
proposal.
and
then
Liz.
And then run
Yeah.
it through Liz,
Yes.
get some expense
Yeah.
costs, and then present it. Because this, we can,
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely.
Well,
well, you took the
Thank
words right out of my
Yes.
mouth because we're losing time
Thank you. I was
here.
gonna
Yeah.
propose
Yeah.
Exactly.
everything because this is kind of new
Yeah, that's good thinking,
Well,
so.
it's new, it's new for me too. As I was putting together thoughts, this needs to, the budget needs to be, because we've never done 30 trees,
Right, okay, got it.
so.
So,
Yeah.
for next meeting, do y'all think you can come back
Yes.
with
hammer
the,
this down.
the proposal itself?
Exactly. Yep.
Liz, can I just ask a question? We could do a mixture,
Yeah, that's
right?
what- I think that's a great
A
idea.
mixture is what
Yeah.
seems to make sense,
Right.
yes or no? Or you
I
wanna
don't
do
really know what
30?
site you're thinking about, so it's hard for me to say.
Yeah, I
You
think
need to meet.
Well, that's
we
what,
need to
okay,
talk
so
about
the
this.
three of us
I
need
think we do.
Okay.
Done.
So y'all
Done.
can cover that
Yep.
offline,
Done.
and we'll move on.
Okay.
Just for the record, Funky Market has joined us as we move forward.
Now.
So I'd like to skip very quickly to new business. To get a reaction from our group here on and I need y'all to remind me, if we've already talked about this and my memory fails me, please feel free. But as we think about where and what we want to do, whether it's Arbor Day or whether it's a standalone program, if we look at areas in town, which we all know are less forested with trees, and I'm talking about private property at the moment. So I'm shifting gears on us to private property. If we were to look at, let's say, an obvious area, which might be country club estates, might have fewer than some of the other streets that we have in town. If we, is that a yes, Liz, or a no?
I don't know. South Rehoboth is pretty.
Yeah.
I would say that might even
And
be
closer
worse.
to the oceans.
Well,
Well,
close
yeah,
to the ocean,
naturally.
yes, but overall. oh,
But
geez.
for example, we'll just throw it out. Say like first block of Stokely.
Yeah, first blocks.
Let's say that.
Yeah, right.
First block.
Okay, I'm talking about Scarborough back,
You're talking
between
about Country Club
Scarborough and
Estates.
State.
I think that is,
Yes.
yes.
So I
Not
don't
the
want to
north,
debate,
Not the north side.
I don't want to debate, whether I'm right or wrong.
Yeah.
But conceptually.
Yes.
I think we can prove, and Terry's got it with her, where
Yes.
the least populated
Here's the
areas are.
ocean, here's
Yeah.
Country Club Estates, here's the Pines.
So let me get to the point.
Perfect.
If we were to agree, or even have consensus, that we would like to go back to something all of you have talked about over and over and over again, is helping our residents to agree to plant a tree. If we created a new program, another attempt to have the city, through education, ask folks in the targeted areas if they would like a certain type of tree, which we would depend on Liz to help with the choices that would fit primarily 50 by 100 lots. And if the city were to fund it and also have an agreement with the homeowner that because of this program, which we would give a name at some point, if you agreed to having the tree planted on your property and you agreed to maintain it, if there were problems with that tree, primarily the sidewalks, then the agreement that the city would have with that property, because the properties can change, ownership can change over time, but there would be a city agreement with that property that if the sidewalk, and I'm coming at this from an incentive standpoint, that if you agree to plant the tree, from an incentive standpoint, the city will buy that tree, will plant that tree, you will maintain it, you will water it, make sure it doesn't die, etc. And then in the longer term, I would hope that by picking the right kind of tree, you run less chance that you will disrupt the sidewalk. But if the sidewalk was disrupted, that the city would make it right. The city would maintain that sidewalk as part of an agreement. Now, the reason I raise this is we have yet to, unless I missed it, and please be frank if I did, we have yet to come up with an incentive program. And I got to thinking about if the barrier for some of our property owners in Country Club Estates, or even Schoolview, or even other streets that, like, you know, whatever we were to decide, if the barrier is sidewalks and the fact that the city would ask the homeowner to correct that.
Would we?
That's what I'm told. So, but we don't have a program like this. We don't have agreements that I understand with property owners. So from an incentive program, do we want to think about something like this? Because we had a stop and a start we had a start and a stop in Country Club on Munson, right?
Well,
Those were street trees.
no, but they did do, a couple of years ago, they went around and had some private
we
property.
had tremendous project.
Yeah.
That's right, that's right.
But we, oh, go
And
ahead.
you had success.
So,
But, go ahead, I
so
was gonna ask a question.
so is there an opportunity to link and that's what I was thinking of, the tremendous, that didn't really, it's my opinion, it didn't really take off with,
That's because we only did it once.
well,
And you didn't-
without regard, I'm not accusing anybody.
no.
We just haven't found a way to keep it going or energize it or re-energize it. Terry, and then
And I'm sorry to
Liz is
interrupt you, I was
thinking.
gonna wait till you.
No, go ahead.
Well, I guess the biggest question, going back to what we just spoke about, where is all this funding coming from? Because, to give you an example, in 2017, when we started Tremendous Rehoboth, we had private funding. I went out and got private funding. I got discounted trees from a nursery. I got a discounted man to plant them. But where's all this funding gonna come from if it's gonna be on private property?
Well, let me just be clear. I don't like to talk about things that have no possibility of happening because of funding. So I had a couple conversations this past week that would there be an appetite from the city to do those kinds of things if we as a group decided this might be a resurrection of Tremendous with more agreement and support from the city.
I think that's great.
And there was no pushback because the funding was mentioned, and there was no pushback to, if you bring a program, it needs to go to the commissioners and let the commissioners decide, can we do this? And should we do it? Do we need to fund it in the upcoming budget cycle that will be effective April 1 of 2020, which to me, I don't know about y'all, but time is going so fast for me that
Yes.
before I know it, it will be spring. So,
So does the budget planning start April 1?
no,
No, it starts in
it ends on
January.
April
No,
1. It's
it starts in
approved.
like
Down in
October.
April, right.
Yeah. So shortly, Sturgis, if I'm not incorrect, the city manager will be asking her department heads and commissioners will be putting in ideas and requests and potential programs that they would like to see funding directed to or not directed to for the 2021 cycle. But the cycle where the money is available is April 1 of 2020. So very, very shortly.
2020, okay.
So that's why I was saying your March date is after the new funding will be effected. We are in the current funding
It's
for
the
the
last month of
budget.
the fiscal year.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So all I wanted to put on the table today
Right.
is if this is something that we feel from an incentive standpoint is appropriate and it would revive Tremendous, we could begin to work on this. If you looked at it and said, I don't really want to go down that road again, I'm open to hearing that. So Susan?
Yeah, can I just add a couple of things? First of all, part of the program, and I love the fact that that the city could contribute to it and have that as an incentive. I think that's wonderful. But one of the things we did in the previous program is the homeowner also had to pay. Was it $50, right, Terry?
Just 50.
Because the sense that I had with various incentive programs, even in other places, is that if someone has some skin in the game, they're more likely to, take care of it and all of that. So I certainly wouldn't mind having that be part of it as well, so that they're not actually completely given away. But the other thing you mentioned, the sidewalks, is the idea that, there would be some in front yards that might ultimately damage the sidewalk, or are we talking a combination of street trees and private property?
We're not talking about street
Okay.
trees. We are talking about private property.
Okay.
And how to get folks more interested in planting. It may not be an oak, but it might be a larger specimen of some type.
Yeah, what were the choices we had 2 years ago? One was a sunset maple or
We
something?
had an autumn glory maple, and we had what we ended up doing was just maples. And they were mid canopy because
Yeah.
people did not want the high canopy.
Right, yeah.
But they were gonna grow 40 feet tall.
But all this hinges on if we want to try to revive this, and if we feel that a barrier to getting folks really interested in doing this is potential responsibility for the sidewalk, we can clear those barriers
Well, that would be important.
See,
in the areas that have sidewalks to begin with. Because those that don't have sidewalks,
Well, Country Club has sidewalks.
that's a different discussion. But if we start with where the largest vacancy is, if you will, that might be a barrier to folks. Liz?
Well, why don't we just pick, to me, maples are not the best choice if we're worried about sidewalks, but why don't we just say it has to be set back 5 feet from,
I don't want to talk
Yeah.
about the details.
Right, yeah.
The details are not germane at this point. You can set them
Well-
back 5 feet, you can set them back 10 feet. What I'm talking about is conceptually for front yards, and we could even decide backyards could be included
Yeah,
as
I
well.
actually think they
But
could.
working out the details, just like with Arbor Day, is not something we have on the table yet. We don't have a program like this. So we've had a start and a stop.
Yeah.
But what I was thinking is, how about not trying to recreate the wheel? Let's just take the wheel, get the wheel moving, and work with what we feel the barriers are to getting people to say yes, and then clear those barriers. Sturgis?
I think really critical to this being kind of worth our effort in promoting it is identifying the barriers. And because I think there are multiple
Yeah.
barriers, and I don't think it's just sidewalks. So I think we need to be real clear before we put a lot of energy into this. And I think Liz could be really helpful because she interacts with folks on tree issues, on a daily basis. I mean, as a detail, I'm thinking, again, I'm getting into a little bit of detail.
Please don't.
Sewers, damage to city sewers. Very expensive, and this can happen when tree roots get into, and where does the city responsibility start and all.
Okay.
So that's just another one
Point
of
taken.
those kind of financial, but I'm thinking there are other ones just in terms.
But this discussion today is, it's a yes or no?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Explore it.
Because
Let's
we need
explore
to work
Yeah.
out and explore
Yeah.
everything. So
Yeah.
I'm seeing a lot of
Okay.
consensus.
it. Oh, yeah.
Yes.
We've been talking
So-
about
Let's
this.
Yeah.
try
for
to land
2
But,
years.
but we haven't,
Right.
nobody
Well,
has
I
come
think we
forward with
think
the
we wanted to
program.
focus on public trees first. I thought
Well,
that
we're
was
gonna be
the-
doing that, and we're doing.
I know, and that's, and we
are-
are
that'll be
doing
on
that.
So I've been bringing this up for 3 years, ever since I started. Why don't we have a program? We could do a pruning incentive, we could do a planting incentive, there's all kinds of things you could do. For
Okay.
3 years, I've been saying it.
Okay.
So if you guys can finally get something done, I'd be super happy.
Well,
I-
okay, let's not argue about who's been asking for how many
No,
years.
no, I'm
We'll
excited.
put it on me, okay? I have not,
I think it's great.
I have not been able to get this group to actually put down on paper, here's the incentive program for pruning, here's the incentive program for X, Y, or Z. But as I was thinking about what we have and have not been able to accomplish, if we focus on putting it down on paper, then I think it stands a better chance of getting to the commissioners in time for the most critical thing, which, first of all, it's gonna be funding, and second of all, what are the other barriers, Sturgis, to your point, that we have to clear? Terry, and then we're moving
I'm
on.
doing a real quick overview. What I was gonna propose is, because we went through this 2 years ago for Tremendous Rehoboth, we talked to 40 homeowners between the 5 of us, as far as barriers and what they were looking for.
Sure.
So my proposal is, maybe we could start with that, because I
course.
do have paperwork that shows
Of course.
contracts, homeowners and all of that.
Of course,
So we can maybe start there?
of course.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's my proposal.
so my question, does anyone have enough passion left about incentive programs to want to chair the small group?
Well, I can share it, because I did the proposal last time for it, so.
I'm in.
And I guess the only other thing I would throw out is, if we're gonna zero in on country club, and if this is going to be for private property owners, then the annual meeting of the Property Owners Association is, I believe, Saturday, September 7th. So, you know, I know we were there before and, you know, presented things in general, but if this is gonna move ahead and be something very specific, as in, would you like to participate?
No.
It might be good to have something.
I don't believe this would be even to the commissioners.
By then, okay,
by
that's fine,
then.
that's fine.
Much less
Right.
new commissioners will be sworn in.
Well, but would you not
Blah,
want to try to get their feedback?
We
Like,
did that.
if-
We did
Well, but I
that.
mean, maybe get something a little more concrete and say,
Stop. Whose feedback?
from country club, I mean, basically to propose it to them, maybe with a
Stop.
little bit more,
We don't have a proposal.
Right.
okay.
So we're not going outside of this group until we have every question that we can come up with through experience
Okay,
answered, because I don't have any energy left
It's fine.
for not trying to anticipate what we need to anticipate.
But I was
At
saying,
least.
we did that 2 years ago.
okay, I didn't know,
And
if-
we got
I'm
a
just,
lot of
I'm just,
Yeah,
feedback
yeah,
and
we
learned about
did.
the barriers.
God,
I think
God
that's
and the
what
devil.
So
in
that's what
there.
Terry's
Terry's
talking about.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay,
right.
so we'll go from that.
I mean,
Okay.
and was posed in,
Okay.
if we did this.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Would you be willing?
Can I say one thing about the budget? Because I've had this
Yes.
discussion before about the mitigation fund all along. I thought it should be used for private property.
Yeah.
And the way the code states it, it can be used to plant or preserve trees on public property, or as the city sees fit to, you know, preserve, protect the trees and the citizens of the city. So I think there might be room in there to go to the commissioners and say, we would like you to fund this program out of this. And I think that's more appropriate, that homeowners are paying into that fund and
Yes.
it's given back to homeowners.
yes.
And that might be part of the program we don't have on paper yet.
So
But
just
as soon as
to
it's
throw
on
it out
paper-
there, yeah.
Yes.
And I think that's really positive publicity
not 100%.
also, if we did. If we were to do what Liz is talking about, I
Yeah.
think that's just such positive publicity.
Well, anything.
Yeah.
Also,
yeah.
that residents that will see, oh, it's coming back.
Here's what you get back.
It's
Yeah.
coming back to
And
us.
I strongly feel that I should not be relying on that to fund my budget. I would prefer it to be going back to the people. I should not have cuts in the tree budget and use that to make up for it.
Agreed.
So I think that could be a good ask.
Yes.
Okay, so this is gonna move forward. Terry's gonna be the chair. I'm gonna talk to Terry offline. What are we doing? What's happening?
And she's gonna, on the committee too. Andrea wanted to join it too.
Are you a co-chair, or are you just on the committee? What are you?
Second.
Okay, we'll figure all that out.
Swords
Um,
and horns.
Tony, let me just say,
Yes.
one, as a member of the committee and as a commissioner, I'm very supportive of the concept that you've put on the table. And I would guess, and Liz could certainly research this out easily, that there have to be municipalities up and down the coast, all across the country, that have incentive programs.
Oh, yeah.
And some, and, yeah,
We've spoken to them.
and you can look at what, what's worked, what hasn't worked, and build that into this.
Okay, well, this is very helpful to me,
Proposal.
because just getting a little re-energizing around it might be the right thing to do.
And establishing a program.
Yes.
That's most important.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, 30 minutes left. Who's got, as we are playing with our agenda here, commemorative tree status? Anything new, different?
Oh, yes.
Yes, Terry.
Real briefly, a lot of things have happened. What happened was, met with Liz, redesigned the brochure, met with several times with the communications department, Chris Johnson. She put it through to her design people, they redid the graphics. So I'm just gonna pass a couple of these around. These are just ones that I put together at Staples. They're not gonna be on this type of paper. They'll be on more glossy, you know, professional looking type of paper. But I'm very happy with it because, let's see.
And I brought the actual leaves, so.
Oh, yeah, you
if
did,
anybody
and I
wants
have a whole.
We want
list.
to pass these
And these
around.
are, yeah, these are the leads.
Yeah.
What we're
Yeah.
going to do
That's
is,
great.
we're going to have 3 levels for funding. We're gonna have the, 350, 600, and $1,000. And then I was gonna show you, I don't know if I can put this up here.
Oh. Anybody want, you got
He
brochures?
he was gonna, oh, here it is. What I did was, so previously we met, can all of you see the screen?
Yes.
On the small. So previously we met with Bill Wolf, who's designing the wooden structure of the tree. And then what I did was, I did a mock-up. The way those leaves are gonna be set up on the wall, I just did this very quickly. You see how that is set up with the leaves? And there will be 3 colors of leaves, and we're setting it up so it kind of has a little bit of movement, where there'll be the leaves mostly around the tree, and then it'll look like it's blowing, because this wall, I think, is 18 feet long. We wanted something that would be longer in terms of the width, but also look like it's got some movement to it. So that's what the plan is for the wall. And we should have these brochures ready probably within a week or 2. And one of the things I was gonna mention is, okay, so just in terms of the scheduling, around October 4th, we're thinking of having a reception. There would be the unveiling of this tree with the leaves on the wall. And we're trying to do it in conjunction with the Rehoboth Art League, because they're gonna be doing the unveiling of the mural outside.
So we've been in touch with them.
That would be a nice
And,
touch.
yeah, and that way, and I think it would also bring in more people.
We want the people.
Yeah, because we can possibly get contributions at that time.
So, budget, do we have a publicity budget?
What do you mean by publicity?
Well, we need to get the word out that we're having this event.
You would take that up with Chris Johnson?
Yeah,
Okay,
Chris
so
and I
it's all
talked
Chris?
about
Okay.
that.
Yeah,
Chris
yeah,
and I
sorry.
already talked
Okay.
about that.
All the
So I
context.
do have an update a little beyond what Terry said. So these are currently at the printers and should be ready next week. It's already been added online to our website. So if you go to trees, it's right there under Commemorative Tree.
Is it there as a?
It's there.
actually
PDF,
this-
yeah.
Oh, great.
So it's a fillable PDF, so you can do it online.
Okay, nice.
And then once we get the printed copies, we will work on the press release. So once we have the printed copies, Chris is good doing the press release. It'll go out and then putting it on our website and other social media as well.
Okay, so
That's
a couple
exciting.
questions I have for you, Liz, because I've already been talking to some
We should
people
have
about
that
making
October.
donations, and we do have people on our committee that are already willing to start the donations.
Well,
A couple questions
have to
people have
talk to
told me, that's okay, because I think it's really important. Those of us who are gonna be making phone calls to people to start going down that list of people interested, I've already got questions. For example, where are the priority planting locations?
So this year it's gonna be Rehoboth Avenue.
Oh, great, okay, so that's Rehoboth Avenue. And somebody also asked me, will the website mention the locations, the planting, so as people are putting money in, or will it say it on the website, or should I take it up with Chris? About, this
I'm
is
not
our
sure.
priority area.
It doesn't say that now.
Because people want to have that recognition of where their money's going and,
So by saying the priority planting area for 2019 is Rehoboth Avenue, that would be sufficient? Okay,
Yeah,
I
something
don't see
like
why we
that.
can't have
I
that.
think broad timelines, at the time they made their gift is all they're asking for,
Yeah,
just a
and-
little bit of
The
transparency.
current priority planting area is Rehoboth Avenue.
Okay.
So, okay, that's
The
easy
other
enough.
question I've gotten is in terms of the timeline, are we still on schedule? If we could get 25 to 30 donors, could we get decent-sized trees planted in November, this November?
Yes, I'm gonna do
Okay.
2-inch, aim for 2-inch
That was my
trees.
question too. Okay, so planting November, size is 2 inch.
Would all of those go on Rehoboth Avenue, if there were 25?
I'm right about that, yeah.
Okay, great.
So 25 is reasonable.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
Terry, is the feedback you're getting that people are okay with the plaque being here as opposed to something
Yeah,
on
they
the
like
tree?
that. The only thing I've gotten a little bit of feedback on is they were surprised at how expensive it was to start at $350, but I explained These are expensive. You know.
Which is
Oh,
funny
yeah, I mean,
because
usually
in
they're more than that.
1980, when we started this, we had the records, it was 500 for the
Yeah,
plaque and
yeah.
the tree.
Oh,
So-
wow.
Yeah, and the
Wow.
last thing I wanted to mention, in conjunction with this, which I think is really important, is Tony, all of us as a committee got together and we donated, the first leaf is gonna be to you. And I'm sorry, I forgot it, I had the mock-up done by the engraver, but it's gonna say, Commissioner Tony Sharp, Mayor's Advisory Committee on Trees, and you get the first leaf paid for by our committee.
Yeah.
So I just wanna say,
Fearless leader, yes.
so anyway, that's the first leaf going on the tree.
Right up there.
Tony
And you're
Sharp,
gonna- and
oh
you're
my
gonna get this really
gosh.
pretty color.
Please, God, don't put Mary on it. Mary. Have you seen the plaque in the doorway at City Hall for the commissioners who were on the board at the time of City Hall?
Mary A. Sharp.
Mary A, right here.
It can say whatever you
Well,
want it to say.
no, it couldn't, not on that one. Thank y'all so much.
No.
That is, I'm astounded. It's very nice, not at all expected or required, but what a nice, thoughtful thing.
Oh, we thought it was well deserved.
Thank everybody, thank everybody.
Certainly earned, that's
Oh
for
my
sure.
God.
Now, and one of the other questions I have is from people, is yesterday I was on Munson Street. And I ran into some neighbors who were and this is tied in with this. And I have photographs of a lot of these dead trees, and people were very upset because they said, when I started talking about this program we had, because they were saying, why are you here? And I was walking around, I was talking to people, and they said, what is with all these dead trees?
So all dead trees get replaced in the fall. So we've had a lot of problems with truck damage. This last week alone, I had 4 truck damage incidents knocking gigantic limbs off of trees. We've had those new trees backed into, weed whacked, lawn mowed. But we can, I'd say realistically, expect 30% would be normal.
I'm bringing a prop.
Failure.
Failure on newly planted trees is normal.
Very quickly, I'm bringing a prop.
Non-irrigated, we'll say, not with landscape irrigation. But like I said, those are all going to be replaced in the fall. So
Okay, because I'm bringing a prop to this meeting, and I was gonna show it on that, but the gentleman isn't
are
here.
you bringing a prop of dead trees?
No, I'm bringing a prop.
You can
Just put it
you
right
should
on.
really use it for Terry's.
Here, put it up there and
The
that'll be
only,
helpful.
what I'm bringing, and I'll show you that, is people were very concerned because these are all photographs from Munson Street. And this is a prime example. Can you see all this? Do you see how I peeled back? This is.
Yeah, they can be thrown away. They're only good for like a year and a half.
Yeah, well, they've been on there for 2 years.
Yeah.
I brought one of them because it's so terrible. What's happened is that the dead trees, the roots were actually growing upwards because these were not working to water the trees. And
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Can't we just, no, I shouldn't phrase it that way. Is there any advantage in having those removed?
Having what? The bags? Yeah.
The whole
Well,
thing?
no, I wouldn't say. No, it's not like they're harmful, like dangerous or anything
Okay.
like that.
But they are tacky
They're
looking.
distasteful.
And they don't
Yeah.
look good.
They're
Well,
not attractive. They're
I don't,
unattractive.
let me go back to Terry. I don't
And
want to
the reason-
digress.
The reason I'm telling you this is because a couple of the people that I was talking to when I was walking down Munson, just to kind of see what was going on, when I mentioned that we're starting up this program to raise funds from private property owners to put trees on public areas, they laughed and said, good luck. Because they said, if this is what's gonna happen, you know, good luck. This is an example. I don't know if you can see this, but I pulled back one of these self-watering bags on one of the dead trees. And like I said, the roots were growing from the ground. This is dry as a desert. They're growing up into the bags. So obviously this doesn't
Getting
work.
water.
So the question is,
Yeah.
and here's the one that was just put into the top lot. It's already dead. It was planted, what, 2 weeks ago?
No, like a week ago, probably.
Okay, well, it's basically dead. This, when I pulled open this bag, which barely had any water in it.
Well,
this
those drain in like an hour.
No, but what I'm saying is
years.
this, what I'm pointing to is, this is exactly what, when we had the campaign back in 2017, this is a mulch volcano. This tree, I don't know who planted it, but I dug through here, I don't have a picture, but I dug down in to see how far. There was 6 inches of dirt and mulch, and the shoulder of the tree, where it should be exposed, you know, where the shoulder comes into the ground.
Flare, root
It
flare.
was six inches below here. So even if it rained, this was, well, I mean, I think you guys got a big rainstorm this week, didn't you?
Yes,
This was
Tuesday.
completely dry, when I put a moisture meter in there. So what I'm saying is, I said to people, this is the one that's in Gerard Park, that's died. And the one that's down, that we planted in Arbor Day 5 months ago is completely dead.
Yeah.
It's completely dead. So that's why I'm saying, I'm out there talking to people, and they're almost laughing at me, saying, well,
Yeah.
great, plant trees, who's gonna take care of them?
Yeah.
Who's gonna water them? So that's my question is, what's gonna happen? What do I tell people from now on about how are we going to water these trees? What can we do to help
It's
you
the critical
do
question.
that?
I think we need a citizen voluntary tree patrol. And I think when property owners see the citizens out there doing this voluntarily, I think they'll get the idea that maybe they could lift a hose every once in a while. So,
Well, the people I talked to on Munson Street said they were given no instructions. And they said, if somebody had told us what to do, maybe we could have watered them. But, you know, so it goes back to, we're gonna start calling people for funding. And we're gonna get feedback like this. And I've gotten feedback a lot like this in the
So-
last 2 years. So how do we solve this problem of watering the trees?
A question for Liz would be
I don't know if there is one.
on the trees that are planted, the street trees and the ones in our public parks, what responsibility does the city take for continuously watering until they?
For the first 2 years.
I'm not sure
Take
what you
hold.
mean by responsibility, like who waters it?
Well,
Or-
does the city assume responsibility for watering it to keep it alive?
So like, say in the case of Grove Park, where they were planted as part of the force main, they plant them and they're out. We were lucky to even get them to plant them as replacement.
Who's gonna
Well, what do you mean we're lucky to?
Because that was part of the force main project, so
Yes.
like the
Okay.
watering fell on the city,
The six
which would be
trees,
me,
Okay.
only me, basically.
that's the
Only
six
you.
trees in Grove Park against the fence.
I think it amounted to dozen altogether.
Well, there's a bigger discussion
Yeah.
here, I think, perhaps at another time.
Well, I
but-
think, Dick, it might behoove us to, if the bottom line here, let's just cut to the chase. If the bottom line is for all trees planted on city property, if the only resource we have to keep them alive, with whatever you have to do to them, is Liz, that's not a reasonable answer.
Plan for failure.
So maybe you and I and Liz at some point in the very near future, or not, could maybe brainstorm a little bit about that and tie in what Bunky just offered about maybe there's let me say something. When we first put this group together, we talked about, because I remember saying it, that if in a certain instance, Liz was the only resource that was available, that this committee might have to step up and start doing some things to support her. And in the short run, maybe if there's just watering needs, there are quite a few of us here. Why are y'all looking at me like I have two heads?
No, I'm looking at, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but the reason I'm looking at
Okay,
you like that is
good.
because this is not a unique problem. Every city in town has this problem. I have visited, like I've told you before, I have visited small towns, big towns, whatever. A lot of them have these gorgeous trees that stay watered. I don't think it is the responsibility of this committee to water trees planted by the city. So I think what's needed is, we need to figure out what other cities and towns of this size with our budget have, and how we can get some kind of solution, watering truck, whatever. But it should not be a responsibility of our committee to water trees
Okay,
planted by the city.
I'll take your point, but in the
It's a city
meantime,
But
to
we can
me,
take on the responsibility of helping to
Yes.
problem solve
Yes.
this situation that we know is now.
because
Yes.
Dick, to me, the
Fact.
first thing is, if the statement I just made, that that's our reality, if our reality is our resources, Liz,
Yeah, I'm it.
okay, if that's our reality, then what's a solution that city staff could fill, whether it comes from the streets department or, I foresee a discussion with the director of public works and the city manager.
Exactly.
That if we're, and Terry, I didn't articulate it correctly, that if we had to fill in an interim way or something, we can't just go about planting things and consciously letting them die.
Exactly, right.
So maybe we could be supportive, but I think Dick and I need to get to the core issue that seems to always be the point here in Rehoboth, that even Main Street, I think, had to face that with the Rehoboth in Bloom.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
That's
so,
what I was thinking.
yes, so Dick, maybe you and I can take that in the very, very, very short term for me, and see if there's something we can churn up about it, at least.
Well, there's Commissioner Sharp and then
Yeah.
there's Volunteer Sharp.
Uh-huh.
Right.
Okey dokey, fine.
But I hate
Elise.
to even think about planting those 25 trees on Rehoboth Avenue and
Well,
then just praying that it's
yeah,
gonna rain
really,
over the
yeah,
winter.
yeah. And that was really my point.
Yeah.
That
I mean,
if we do something like that in
we
the
have to
very
solve
short
this
term,
quickly.
because fall is coming. And I don't, municipal government sometimes moves a little slower than I would like. But there are always things we can do in the interim.
The answer, like what most cities do, is have it included in your bid. That's,
From whoever planted, yeah.
that they're responsible for
So they take-
providing a weekly watering service of X amount of gallons unless there has been a significant rain event of a half an inch.
Well, and let's not try to solve it right
I have a
this
question,
minute.
but-
Go ahead, Elise.
As I understand it, the city has contract with Sposado for the, I'm just thinking about around
Yeah.
for City Hall.
Our
Are
our
they- are they
landscape
watering?
contract is Spizzato.
Are they watering the City Hall grounds? They planted all
We have,
those plants.
we have irrigation, so there's no hand watering required for that.
But a lot of those trees have died.
We
I
have
mean, a lot.
one dead tree, a black.
Well, all those arbor vitae last summer died along the fence. I don't know if those were the
What
city.
arborvitae you're talking about?
Well,
We don't have any.
well,
Are you talking about the crepe myrtles?
no, I'm talking about along the fence by Bad Hair Day. Maybe they're not, there's some
Oh,
kind
the
of evergreen.
junipers? We have one
Juniper.
die.
They all
It's
look,
empty.
okay,
Well,
it all
I
looked
think it
pretty
goes
bad.
down to a watering issue, like
But but that's my, so all that's irrigated, you have drip
Yes.
lines throughout the whole city property?
Yep, we have about like 40 two different controllers, about 40 zones. for
Carrie.
City Hall.
Just to wrap this up, I just think that in talking to, like I said, dozens of people in the last 2 years, it comes down to maintenance, the whole watering issue has to be dealt with. And I think there again, we don't need to reinvent the wheel. Let's see what other cities and towns do, and see if there's budgeting, funds available. But
Well,
we
and
can't
I-
let these trees die
I
because people are
strongly
laughing
agree
at
that
this.
we can no longer be satisfied in a city as in tune as we are to our environment and our surroundings, that we can't bust through a barrier of, it's a resource issue.
Yeah.
It's a resource issue.
Exactly. We are
So how do we solve that? And
Exactly.
so Dick and I can at least put some markers in the ground of how to solve this. Okay.
But it has to be solved. I
Yeah,
mean,
it has to be. You don't
Pride
have a
ourselves on being a
choice.
tree
Yeah.
city
You
and
don't-
everything
no.
else.
We can't be
So-
doing this
No.
and
Yeah.
be subjected
Yeah.
to
2 weeks ago.
failure.
Yeah, I
We
know.
just can't. Okay. Does anybody, I know I want to get to Sturgis, to give us some feedback from the Law Oversight Group based on their agenda for Wednesdays, this past Wednesday's meeting. There were tree ordinance issues, and maybe you can give us a little feedback on how that meeting went and what are the next steps?
Yeah, I'll just do that real quickly. We looked at two. One was the appeals process of decisions of the building inspector and the city arborist. And Sandy Bieber had taken the lead on sort of editing Julie Davis's copy. And so we went through that kind of blow by blow. And so I think we're getting closer to having that finalized.
And can you distill what it is what's the goal? What is it,
Okay,
what is it
goal-
trying to change or
what it's trying-
modify?
What it's trying to modify is to make that whole process explicit in terms of who can do it, how they can do it, to whom can they appeal. First, the current code says that the city has the option to hear appeals. So a basic change was they shall hear appeals. So that
So,
was, yeah.
Let me just ask it in a more direct way. Anything that they're working on right now, does it have anything to do with, other than administrative changes, does it have anything to do with the canopy or protection or
Okay.
growth or anything that,
I'll get to that. No,
Okay.
Okay, I mean, there's a suggestion that I made that I think could affect that.
Uh-huh.
I mean, there are a couple things. One is it explicitly says, and this is kind of repetitive, it explicitly says that if the Parks and Shade Tree Commission wants to, go against the arborist and the city and the building and licensing, they have to document that there is an error in judgment, that they've made a wrong judgment in denying someone's ability to remove a tree or tell them that they need to do something in terms of mitigating a tree. It also, my recommendation was that there should be a provision in there that if someone claims a hardship, that the Parks and Shade Tree Commission should have explicit guidelines to help them evaluate what hardship means.
okay,
So that, so that's more explicit. And it's also kind of about timing. In other words, 30 days, you only have 30 days in which to appeal. So these
Okay.
aren't things that could go on forever.
okay.
So that's kind of, those are sort of the highlights of that. The other one we looked at was mitigation. And really for the first time in the group, we really started talking about what kinds of trees and how many do we want to see on 50 by 100 lots, as a standard kind of lot. What kind of mitigation makes sense in this kind of setting and what doesn't, and Liz's was really critical in terms of saying, there's some things that maybe don't fit our city. The whole mitigation we've got now in the city codes is really designed for developers that are doing big redevelopments and removing numerous trees on big plots and how are they going to kind of recreate the green space that they're getting rid of to build a whole development. So, I mean, basically, I think what we're getting down to is looking at what makes sense, what will lead to quality trees, not just quantity trees, and what's fair and what's enforceable. I mean, so those are some, we really, I think are narrowing down on that. We're about to have a vacancy. Sandy Beaver told us afterwards that he's asked not to be reappointed. I don't think it's a secret.
Mm-hmm.
And I haven't talked to Hoyt at this point about
Okay.
who he's looking at to replace, but I'm just sort of saying that there's an opportunity maybe for somebody to be on there to help out.
Thank you.
Yeah, did I miss anything, Liz?
Did you go over my hypothetical I posed? I think that was the best part of our meeting.
What was your hypothetical?
Because Sandy was talking his part and I was hearing and interpreting something that I didn't think everybody else was. So I posed the question, in your 4 opinions, we'll go right down the line, because there were 4 of them. If you have a lot, a wooded lot, or a lot with numerous trees, mature trees, let's just say, should you be able to remove all those trees as long as you still meet the minimum density and leave 3 saplings? And we went through and they just Sturgis spoke for a minute. Everybody spoke for a minute on it, but in my opinion, it basically came down to the lawyers.
We had a 50-50 split with those in the room. Because basically, I mean, Sandy was kind of trying to propose that the whole permit system be kind of removed and not have any kind of city oversight to decide what could or couldn't remain on a lot. And just personally, I feel our committee would oppose that and I would oppose that as well, because I do think that a professional needs to make a decision about what needs to be preserved and what can be let go on a lot in terms of.
This is a very interesting connection, I think. And I'm going to push us just a minute to connect the dot between Liz's hypothetical, your remarks, and this letter. That they don't really necessarily, from the committee structure, it doesn't seem to align with the vision that's already been put out there. So do you want to spend a minute
I
talking
will.
about this draft letter?
Surely. I mean, one of the things that I did bring the committee back to was, and Liz also, underlined this, is that, anything that we do should come from the comprehensive development plan. And so, when we're looking at anything, we need to make sure, this is what I've been trying to help the committee do, is really look at what are the goals, what are going to be the results of any decisions that are made. And so, I think that there is sort of an opening there on that committee for folks to have some more learning about the background and kind of the source of this. And so I'm hoping that's something I'm going to be able to bring and, with you guys' support and all of that.
Well, because I was noticing, just as an aside, that the survey that I hope everybody's had a chance to fill it out for the Planning Commission for the Comprehensive Development Plan has several opportunities in it to validate
It does. It
the
certainly does.
tree need and preservation.
Obviously, and any kind of change in the code is going to have to have popular support.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's another point, is that, the mayor and commissioner should be representative of a populace that has said we're pro-tree, and so the code should certainly be in line with that. This letter, and there may have been some confusion about this letter, but this letter really has kind of a limited sort of scope and purpose, and basically what this letter is saying that we in this group heard what was said at the June 3rd meeting, and that we want to put ourselves in concert with the goals as they were expressed, and commend the mayor and commissioners for their sort of alliance with trees as being consistent with the plan, and to point out some of them are educational. I tried to make a connection in this letter between things that were benefit from trees, even if there wasn't a direct connection. So, there was never an intention in this to make any specific kinds of demands or requests. It was simply to say you were talking about what's dear to our heart. Thank you very much, and we noticed, and so here's our response.
Well, this gives me a really good opportunity to say something to this
Okay.
group, which is, as of tomorrow and the completion of the election, we'll have 2 new commissioners in waiting, so to speak. So it also brings up the situation of the continuing role of chair of this committee. And I'm going to give the mayor an answer today at 11:05 or 11:10 or whenever I get downstairs to the question he posed on would I continue on with this committee. And I'm going to tell him yes. And that you can interpret that well or not, however, and I'm fine if you're not good with that, but.
Can we get our tree back?
We'll over the second one.
Yes, you could. The leaf, you mean the leaf? Funky wants the leaf back, so that'll be a discussion for y'all. Yeah. But I'm also gonna tell him that, I'm only gonna do it, contingent on, a better, opportunity for me to spend more time on just this, not everything else that, as Dick knows, we get inundated with over time. And this might honestly, Sturgis, be an excellent way to present to the commissioners at maybe their September meeting or October meeting, to give them this, to have the chair of this committee, if indeed I'm approved to continue on, to speak to the commissioners a little bit about how much energy there really is and how much commitment there really is toward this. And we need every single one of them to be on, not necessarily be on our side, but to be open-minded and helpful when they can be, and not to be a barrier that would be difficult for us. So I see a bit of a different use for this, and it's kind of like the stars are aligning for me about where I might be able to be more helpful and not so distracted with some other things. So that's going to happen on its own. So I can personally say I would never push back on anything like this, because it's all about positivity, and it's all about pulling together and listening to each other and so forth. So if you want, we can keep this on the agenda and just keep working it on how we're going to use it, when we're going to use it. But it might get even a lot more play if it were attached to a commissioner's agenda as a letter that is coming from the Mayor's Advisory Committee on Trees, and a little discussion with the commissioners to go with that about the vision of where we're going, if that could work.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, it's weird. It's really weird to think how it's all happening, and maybe it's all for the greater good, you know? And so I'm very pleased with being able to tell the mayor that today, and whether or not the commissioners approve it, that would be the next step. And if they don't, well, then someone else will. Yeah, someone else would approve, would be the chair. So I just thought I'd kind of pull that together, and it kind of culminates in here. So that's all I have to say about that.
Well, you know you have my support, because 6 or 8 weeks ago, I asked.
Yes,
the
I was
same
going to
question.
say that, you know, that Dick sits right next to me.
Will you consider staying on?
Yes, and he
Sure.
did, in that very Dick Byrne way of, hey, since we sit next to each other. So just for a couple more meetings. But as for this group, I'll do it if approved and if we actually make progress. So that's the other thing. And there's so much energy here. It's just a matter of blasting through and getting the things done that we want to get done. So this will remain, Sturgis, until we get a little bit better sense of what's going on and where things are going to land. It's 11:03. Any other burning issues for today's agenda? Elise?
At last month's meeting,
I wasn't here,
I know,
but Sturgis
we
was.
discussed the sewer pipe project over at Lake Gerard, or Lake Avenue, and trees coming down in the park. And we decided at that meeting that we would draft a letter, I think, to help Liz.
Lake Avenue Phase 2. Okay,
Phase
sorry, I was
2.
thinking sewer pipe. I'm like,
No, sorry, I made,
Gotcha.
I said
Yeah.
sewer, is it, but the
Lake
pipe,
Avenue's
the
Phase
Lake
2.
Avenue. But 3 or 4 big trees are coming down. And to mitigate that, we decided to draft a letter, and all of us approved the letter. I think Sturgis shared it with you, Tony. It was about planting trees in front of the Breakers Hotel.
Yes.
In that green space, to mitigate what's going on across the street. Did you, Sturgis, I think, share the letter with you?
I haven't done anything.
Okay, and we were wondering if you did.
Yes,
if
I
you
haven't
did
done
anything
anything with it yet.
And we thought it needed to be done in a timely manner. I don't know what's been going on with the discussion with Public Works and finalizing the project as far, I mean, is there still time to get the letter in, or have we lost our opportunity?
Well, wait. Is the issue,
I mean, we were recommending trees being planted because, behind the breakers, because we can't replant them.
right, where they,
Where they were.
Well, I don't see any timing on that as a problem, because you wouldn't plant them until the fall, right?
But I
well,
think
but it
was
would
about-
be included as part of the bid.
Is
as
that
the
too late?
project. Not to my knowledge. I have not had any more work on Lake Avenue Phase 2 since this last meeting. I
Oh,
haven't
okay.
had anything.
Then all I need to do is, who's the point person on the wording that's gonna go in the bid?
Kevin.
Who's writing the bid?
Well, he's not writing it, I don't think. I'm
But it's
sure there's-
reporting up through him.
Kevin's in charge of that project.
Got it. Okay, I'll just go see Kevin.
Because what we were hoping to do was get maybe 5 trees there. You could accommodate at least 5 trees. Decent, decent
Oh,
size.
okay,
How much
because,
land off the street is city as opposed to
I don't know if
from the
this one-
building is hotel?
I think
Do
a
we know?
lot. I
think
think
most
almost
of
all
them
of,
are.
I think almost all of it, honestly.
Is city?
All the way up to the
I
dumping.
think so,
Okay,
but
okay.
I don't have the survey.
Okay.
trees at the breakers, right?
Yeah.
Behind the
Okay.
breakers.
As far as you
facing
know, there's
Lisbon.
no written agreement with the Breakers Hotel in terms of that space?
What do you think?
To my knowledge, there's no lease agreement, but I'm not the font of information
But
for
anyway,
that, but
that's-
I've not seen
I'll,
one.
I'll just go see Kevin.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's what we'd like to do, is
Yeah.
get 5,
Great.
maybe 3-inch caliber, decent-sized trees, if possible. I know they're expensive.
Oaks, maybe.
Well, and I see what you're saying
Whatever's
about,
on the city list
see
of
if we can
trees.
put it in the funding for Lake Avenue Phase 2.
It should be part of the project,
Yeah.
because there's gonna be landscape work with the island, so that would just be added into it.
Is Kevin aware of this at all?
Aware of,
The issue with the trees?
is he aware about the breakers?
Yes.
I don't believe so.
Okay, okay.
He's aware of the trees that'll have to be removed and of the rejigging of the
Well,
island.
this'll be great, because it will give me an opportunity to do the following. If you are aware, if one is aware that we are removing mature trees, the commissioners already agreed that the what's next, because of that, is part of the project. That was the presentation I gave. So I stand on really firm ground that, okay, if you're taking them out at, why can't I think of the name of that park?
Gerard?
No,
The
No,
the little
The Italian park.
Garden of the Navigators, Garden of the Navigators. And that little park that's there. If you're removing them from there or the island or wherever they are, because I'm not up on where they are, then it is your responsibility, because you agreed with me when I gave that presentation. You didn't get to stop there. You had to go the next step, which was, okay, we're taking things down. What's the next step? And that was all to be coordinated with Liz. Oh, this'll be great. Okay, yeah.
Go for it, Tony.
Yeah.
I've got to run because I
Bye,
also.
Dick. I'll catch up with
Another
you,
meeting, yeah.
and I'll go see the mayor shortly.
Okay.
Thank you.
7 minutes over.
Andrea, I know you
Can I have to, so we're gonna
Okay,
start ready to adjourn?
Andrea wants 2 seconds, and then
I
we're
just
gonna
want 2
adjourn.
seconds. This is education. Because of, someone sitting right there, Sturgis. Because of Sturgis. For the fall seminars, I decided to go big time. I was gonna do pruning 101, which we're still gonna do, but we, because of the connection that Sturgis's husband has with the University of Delaware, we have, Doug Ptolemy has agreed to speak on October 21st. I don't have time yet, but I don't know if people know him, but it's
That's it.
bringing nature
That's
home.
the Bible.
I knew Jim.
Okay, so, he
So
has
that's a
agreed to
Monday.
speak for, it's a Monday, it'll probably be evening, but I don't yet have a time. He was lovely on the phone, he was excited about coming here. So, do I get with you, Liz, to talk to Chris Johnson, because there'll be a lot of, we'll have to make some arrangements, I've never done this through you.
I think on this one, I wanna understand all the logistics.
Because I don't know them
On
either.
this, and then I will coordinate with Liz and Chris. So let me catch up with you first offline
Okay,
of how you envision this.
okay,
where you envision it, et cetera, et cetera, et
Well,
cetera.
that is all,
Okay.
yeah,
Well,
that
and
is all gonna
And then we'll
depend
go from
upon,
there.
that's gonna depend a lot upon publicity,
Okay,
Yeah.
because he's a big
Yeah,
draw.
and I think the key here
Yeah.
is that he's doing this
Free.
with
Free.
no,
He's
yeah,
doing this free,
no fee.
which is
well,
really.
it's complimentary, how nice of
Well,
him.
he does,
Well,
yeah.
So we need to make sure we get the
Right.
word
Yeah.
out.
Right.
Which,
Yes, we
you know,
really-
Chris is very, very good at getting the word out. It's up to
Yeah.
us to make sure
Well-
she has the lead time and the vision of what it is that we
Right,
want.
And that's why
And-
we asked about
Yeah.
publicity
Right.
budget,
Sure.
you
See,
know, for
yeah.
this as well.
Yeah, October 21 is not that far
No,
away.
no, it isn't.
Yeah, so,
Press
Okay.
releases don't cost us money, and
Yeah.
posting online, it's
Yeah,
just
press
time, it's
releases
just
don't.
time,
I got
so.
one more thing,
Right.
Yes.
one thing. I know Jeff is working on design, and I kind of had this like brainstorm thinking about design.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just, I mean, I'm kind of like, maybe, I hope I'm not stepping on toes or overstepping, but I'm just thinking how much design and the plan that Liz has talked about for the urban forest for the city, how much those things go hand in hand. And I'm just really thinking that, you know, Jeff and Liz kind of working together. And every time I think about one of the issues we have with trees, I'm just thinking, it's gotta be supported by a plan. You know, I mean, that's really what the whole design is about, and, you know, where we're doing what and when.
So let me ask a question.
Yeah.
Jeff, can you be ready by the next meeting, our next meeting, to talk about design and what the vision is in step 1, 2, 3, 4? Yeah. So maybe we could start with some grounding. What is it? What is the vision? Where are we going? What's the goal? And then we'll see the how-to.
Got it.
Okay.
Cool, thanks.
I'll say
Okay.
one last thing on the record. I brought an article in the ISA magazine about urban tree committees. It's about Massachusetts State Surveys. So if anybody wants to look at it, they can, as long as I get the magazine back at the end, you guys can keep it
So
for
it's
a
not,
month.
it's not available online to see anywhere yet?
Not unless you're
A
an
subscriber.
ISA member,
Okay.
yeah. But it's a short article. It's only like really 4
Okay.
pages,
Alright.
so.
Yeah, I'd like to see that.
Thank you all for
Okay,
today.
thank you.
And this meeting is adjourned. I'm gonna
What's the
show
whole
it.
design
Keep
committee?
in mind, we're
What are you
still
working on?
recording. We're still recording, guys.
Turn it off.